Today we have a tale of a young goblin enslaved by an evil wizard who wins his freedom, saves his people, and becomes one of the finest artists in all the multiverse. Stay with us to hear that story. Hi everyone, and welcome to another captivating episode of
The Dungeon Crashers.
I'm Guy.
And I'm Zapil. Before we start our journey, remember to subscribe and get that bell on if you want to be notified when we post our new content. You got to like this video, comment on this video, and share this video. We started a Twitter and TikTok accounts, and I'll be sure to put those links in the description box below, but don't go there just yet. You don't want to miss out on the Dungeon Crashers story time.
Our story begins with Greavy the Dust Boy. Greavy belongs to a community of goblins that was long ago enslaved by a mage that the elders believe is a planeswalker. His people were summoned from their home to this strange world and forced to work for this wizard. The great warriors are taken to fight the wizard's battle against his fellow spark wielders, while the rest are servants in the wizard's fortress. Some serve as smiths or beast keepers or cooks, but Greavy sweeps. The wizard claims he is too simple to be trusted with anything, and his only talent is swinging a broom. One day, when Greavy was sweeping the wizard's chamber, he sees that the wizard had left a bottle upon his desk. Now, normally everything was locked away behind magical wards that no goblin could ever pass and live. For a moment, Greavy felt fear, thinking perhaps this was a test and the wizard was watching to catch him meddling with things and punish him. But Greavy was an impulsive goblin, and the fear gave way to curiosity as he examined the bottle, wondering what fine wine it contained. When Greavy opened the stopper, he found not wine but smoke that formed into a terrible creature of fire and fury. The creature roared with rage, "Why have I been summoned?" Then broke off, seeing not a powerful wizard, but a confused goblin boy. The Ifrit, which is what it was, laughed and said, "Foolish child, I am no common genie that must obey any who open his vessel. I am a walker of the blind eternities, and only one such as I may command me, and then only if they trick me." Greavy said, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I don't want to command you. I just wanted wine." The Ifrit laughed, then his anger melting away, and he said, "Ah, my boy, I see. Well, you may not have the power to bind me, but I am grateful for my freedom, and I will grant you 3 services. Greavy smiled and said, "Well, sir, I think I should like for my folk to be free and sent home." The Ifrit smiled and said, "That shall be my pleasure. I too have been a slave for too long, and I will slay the one who has oppressed us both. What is your second request to me?" Greavy said, "Well, everyone says I got no talent save for sweeping. I'd like to have a great talent if you could, sir." Once again the Ifrit smiled and said, "This I can do as well, more than you know. I sense a spark within you, and I will awaken a portion of it." With this Greavy felt very strange, and screeched in fear as fire sparked from his fingers, and then ice, and then flashes of light. The Ifrit laughed mightily, and said, "Now, boy, what of your last request?" Greavy, still reeling from his new power, said, "Well, sir, I thank you for the talent, but I don't know how to use it, and I don't want to just burn things up. No offense. I want to have a talent to make things, pretty things." Once again the Ifrit smiled and said, "Fear not. I will see that you are taught well. Agree to enter my service, and I will see you become the finest of artists, and a prince among the realms." Greavy said, "Well, that sounds just fine, sir. I thank you." The Ifrit waved his hand and said, "Well, come along then, boy. We have a planeswalker to slay." And with that, Greavy was swept across the wall between worlds to begin a grand adventure.
Our hero Greavy is a goblin, and we are going to use the Monsters of the Multiverse goblin. As a goblin, he is humanoid, and also considered a goblinoid for any features that require him to be one. He is small size and has a movement of 30 feet. Goblins also have Fey ancestry, giving Greavy advantage on saving throws against being charmed or to end the charmed condition. Goblins have dark vision of 60 feet and has nimble escape, allowing him to disengage or hide as a bonus action. They also have Fury of the Small. When they damage an enemy with an attack or spell, they can deal extra damage equal to their proficiency modifier and can use this a number of times per day equal to their proficiency modifier. Goblins can speak common and one other language, in our case, goblinoid. Greavy was nothing special to start with, but he was inquisitive, if a bit foolish, and impulsive. He has a natural charm that is enough to win over the favor of the noble Ifrit. Goblins from Monsters of the Multiverse get the flexible ability scores that wizards use for most of the new races, as well as races that got the update in the book, which are 3+1 ability bonuses that you can put wherever you want, but no more than 2 in one ability. We put an 8 on strength. Greavy is no warrior, and his work was limited to mops and brooms. We put a 14 on dexterity, making it 16 with 2 of our bonuses. Goblins tend to be quick and agile. We put a 14 on Constitution. Greavy is hardy and is used to hardship. We put a 12 on Intelligence. He is inquisitive and curious, which helps him learn about his environment. We put an 8 on Wisdom. As noted, Greavy is impulsive, foolish, and gullible. He follows his whims, not good judgment. Lastly, we put a 15 on Charisma, making it 16 with our last bonus. Not only does Greavy have a natural charm, the Ifrit awakened a spark of magic in him, giving him a great inner strength.
As Greavy emerged from the blackness around him, he found himself in a cavern, and in the center of the cavern was a pool of lava. Hovering above it was the wizard, shrouded in flame. The Ifrit's voice boomed, "Alum Bell, it seems I've caught you at a bad time. Well, I can kill you here as well as anywhere else." The wizard gestured and summoned a small creature made of fire, and said, "Ibn al-Sud, I don't know how you escaped, but I will put you back in the bottle." The Ifrit said, "Greavy, handle the mephit while I deal with our former master." Not even knowing how he did, Greavy sent forth a blast of frost from his hand, and the creature that the Ifrit called a mephit screamed in pain. The mephit lashed at Greavy with its claws, with a blow that should have taken off his head, but a shield of force appeared seemingly out of nowhere and blocked the blow. Out of the corner of his eye, Greavy saw the Ifrit and the wizard locked in battle, magic and counter-magic lashing back and forth. Distracted by the battle, Greavy almost forgot about his own, but he dodged away from the mephit, hoping his new talent would help him. An orb of flickering light appeared in his hand. Greavy felt a chill when the orb flashed blue, so Greavy tossed it to the mephit. The orb struck, and the ice covered the mephit, sending it to the ground. But more than that, a surge of power passed through him, and lightning flies from his fingers, striking not only the mephit, but the wizard as well. The pain seemed to shake the wizard's concentration, and whatever shield was blocking the Ifrit's magic, and the wizard turned ash under the withering blast of fire. The Ifrit, whose name you now know is Ibn al-Sud, smiled and said, "Greavy, I am in your debt once more. Let us return and see how I can reward you." After returning to the wizard's sanctum, the Ifrit disabled the wizard's wards and told your people to gather whatever treasure they could. The Ifrit claimed only certain items of power for itself, and then returned your people to their home plane with enough wealth to start a whole new community. As for you, he told Greavy, it is time to start your training.
Greavy is going to begin with the Prismari student background. Unlike other backgrounds, this gives certain benefits beyond what normal backgrounds have. The student backgrounds are strange from a roleplay standpoint. They are written as if they are the abilities you learned at the school, but in the adventure, you start on the first day of school and don't enter a college until later in the adventure. In our game, we interpret this to mean that the abilities and skills the background gives are things you had before starting the university, and are the traits that attracted the school to invite you to attend. The Prismari student background gives the skills acrobatics and performance, as well as one musical instrument or artisan tool. We will be taking painter supplies. You also gain one language of your choice. We are going to choose Ignan, which is the language spoken by the Ifrit. You also gain the Strixhaven's Initiate feat as a bonus. It allows you to learn 2 cantrips from among Firebolt, Ray of Frost, and Prestidigitation. We are taking Firebolt and Ray of Frost. We also learn 1 first-level spell from the Sorcerer Bard list, and we will be taking Chromatic Orb. We can cast this once per day without using a spell slot, and can cast it with any spell slots that you have. At first level, Greavy begins play as a wild magic sorcerer. He learns 4 cantrips and 2 first-level spells. For cantrips, we take Create Bonfire, Minor Illusion, Control Flame, and Shape Water. These are the tools of our art, and we will be taking Shield and Chaos Bolt for our known spells. We take 2 skills from the Sorcerer list, and we want Arcana to reflect Ifrit's teaching and Persuasion to reflect Greavy's natural charm. As a wild magic sorcerer, Greavy gains certain abilities. The first is Wild Magic Surge. When we cast our sorcerer spell, and the DM can have us roll a d20, and on a 1, we trigger a Wild Magic Surge. If we do, we roll on the surge table found on page 104 of the Player's Handbook, which contains a variety of effects, some good, some bad, and some just plain weird. We also gain Tides of Chaos, allowing us to manipulate the forces of chance. We can gain advantage on 1 attack, ability check, or saving throw. Once we do, we can't do so again until we finish a long rest, or the DM has made us roll to see if we triggered a wild surge. Also, as a sorcerer, we can use an Arcana focus for our material component for our sorcerer spells. This can be a wand, rod, or orb, or another item that the DM approves of. We are using a crystal the Ifrit gave us that is the stopper of the bottle that the Ifrit was imprisoned in.
After defeating the wizard, the Ifrit takes you to his own home on a plane called Rabia. It is a fabulous palace with domes, spires, and minarets, staffed with genie servants who act as if their employer has just returned from a brief trip, even though Ibn al-Saud has implied he was imprisoned for centuries. Time passes strangely in the palace, and it seems like he trains for years, but Greavy doesn't age at all. Greavy is given a suite of rooms decorated with beautiful art, silken tapestries, and carved fountains. Genie servants tend to his every need, and he trains with the Ifrit daily, except for such times as the Ifrit is away on business. Greavy learns much about the practice of magic and of the arts. He learns to paint, not only with brushes and oils, but with flames and water and illusions drawn from his own imagination. He also learns to use his talent for defense, turning fire and ice into weapons to strike enemies, to call forth the chromatic orb of many elements, and to unleash bolts of pure chaos. Ibn al-Saud warns Greavy that his spark is unstable and he will never fully control it, but with practice it will become easier. Greavy learns the truth of this during his study, finding his spells sometimes call forth wild and unexpected effects that are sometimes dangerous. After what seems like years, Ibn al-Saud tells him that he has trained with him enough and it is time to take his studies elsewhere, and he is sending you to a great school of art called the Prismari College, which is led by a cousin of his. This college is part of a university called Strixhaven. He gives Greavy a few days to gather his things and say his goodbyes, and then the Ifrit sends him hurtling across the blind eternities, finally landing in a courtyard surrounded by young beings of many races. Above him in the sky is a great snarl of magic that calls out to Greavy's spark like an old friend. A voice disturbs his thoughts. It comes from a young girl, an elf. She asks, "You are Greavy, yes?" "I am Visela. I will show you to orientation." After finishing his first semester at the school and making some friends and having some adventures, the Ifrit comes to visit. He has brought a gift. It is the bottle that Greavy carries a stopper to. Ibn al-Saud says, "You are ready to fully enter my service. I give you this bottle to aid you. You are doing well here, Greavy. Soon everyone will admire your art."
At second level, Greavy becomes a first level genie warlock with the Ifrit as his patron. He gains one packed magic spell slot, which unlike the sorcerer spell slots recover on a short or long rest. He learns 2 cantrips and 2 spells from the warlock list. His patron adds the spells protection from evil and good to the warlock list for him. We are taking Eldritch Blast and Green Flame Blade for our cantrips, and Hex and Burning Hands for our spells known. Green Flame Blade will give us something useful to do with our dagger should we be forced into melee combat, and Eldritch Blast is a powerful ranged attack that we can improve later on with our invocations. Hex adds damage to all of our attacks, including spells and cantrips, and Burning Hands gives us an even better option if a group of enemies try to force us into melee. Greavy has also learned some basic combat skills, gaining proficiency with light armor and simple weapons. Greavy doesn't really care to fight, using his dagger when necessary, but preferring to use his talent when he must fight. He is happiest, however, creating works of art with his talent. He also learns to use an arcana focus for his pack magic, and the bottle the genie gave him can be used for such a focus, and with your DM's permission, for your sorcerer spells as well. You can also use Bottled Respite. As an action, you can enter your bottle. It appears as a 20-foot radius cylinder that is 20 feet high and appointed with couches, tables, and other furnishings. You can rest here for a number of hours equal to twice your proficiency bonus, and once you enter, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. There are other rules for the vessel found in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and you should read them before playing this character. You also gain Genie's Wrath. Once on each of your turns when you hit with an attack, you can deal extra fire damage equal to your proficiency modifier.
As Greavy continues his studies, he makes many friends and has many adventures. He and his friends gain a great deal of notoriety at the school. After his first year, Greavy is admitted to the Prismari College, after completing his introductory classes, and begins to fully embrace his art. Following the expression philosophy of the school, he makes grand flame paintings that he often enhances with ice sculptures. He even draws the attention of Nastari, the Dean of Expression, his patron's cousin, and a powerful Ifrit in his own right. He praises Greavy's skills, but assures him that he will receive no favoritism because of his patron.
At third level, Greavy takes second level of Warlock, gaining Invocations, which are pieces of Eldritch lore passed to you by your patron. You gain 2 Invocations. For the first, we'll be taking Agonizing Blast, allowing you to add your Charisma modifier to the damage of each beam of your Eldritch Blast. Prismari students tend to add flair to their spells, making them appear flashy and flamboyant. Greavy is no exception. His Eldritch Blast appears as coils of fire and frost wrapping around each other. For our second invocation, you can take whatever you like because we are going to retrain it next level. We also gain another first level spell slot and learn another first level spell. We are going to take Hellish Rebuke, which is not only a good reaction, but it fits with our affinity for fire. At 4th level, Greavy is taking 3rd level of Warlock, and he gains a boon from his patron. The Pact boon he is going to take is Pact of the Chain, which allows him to cast the Find Familiar spell and is used as a ritual. He gains a special familiar instead of the normal animal forms. What familiar you take is up to you because we are going to get a better one next level. He also gains the ability to command his familiar to attack. Can trade an invocation we know for a different one that we are able to learn, and we want to swap our second invocation for Investiture of the Chainmaster. This grants a number of powers. First, you can use a bonus action to command the familiar to take an attack action. We already can use one of our attacks to cause the familiar to attack with its reaction, so now we could make the familiar attack twice on our turn. Our familiar's attacks are considered magical for the purposes of overcoming damage resistance and immunity. If our familiar forces a creature to make a saving throw, it uses our save DC, and when the familiar takes damage, we can use our reaction to give it resistance to that damage. Our familiar also gains a flying or swimming speed of 40 feet. We also gain another spell known, and it can be of 2nd level. For the spell, we have a number of choices beyond the Warlock spell list. The Prismari background adds Flaming Sphere and Kinetic Jaunt to our spell list, and our patron adds Phantasmal Force and Scorching Ray. We are going to be taking Phantasmal Force. We consider painting illusions into people's minds to be the pure form of art.
As Greavy becomes well known and influential on campus, he gains the attention of some of the upperclassmen, who start teaching him some of the secrets to be found in the college. Hidden studios, secrets to be found in the magical snarls, and most importantly, they teach him about the art elementals. The elementals are the mascots of Prismari College and are seen frequently around the campus. These creatures are created by mages who draw power from many elements to create a work of living art. Greavy's new friends teach him the magic to create one of them. Greavy works for weeks, sculpting exactly what he sees as the perfect companion and expression of his art. She is a beautiful creature, a mixture of fire and frost with long flaming hair and ice blue eyes. Greavy then uses his pack boon to invest her with power. He names her Guinevere. She becomes his constant companion and confidant, his muse, and he begins creating the finest art of his career. He fears that the unstable nature of his magic will spoil his work, but instead it enhances it. His professors find the chaotic outbursts from his magic to be a form of pure expression and assure him that it just makes his work more beautiful, even if there is some occasional property damage and minor casualties.
Yeah. At 5th level, Greavy gains 4th level of Warlock, and we will take an ability booster feat, and he takes the Strixhaven's mascot feat. This feat allows the character to cast Find Familiar as a ritual, which Greavy can already do, but it also allows the character to choose one of the Strixhaven mascots as the familiar. The character may also forego one of his attacks to allow the mascot to attack as a reaction, another thing Greavy can already do. And lastly, it gives the ability for the character to switch places with the mascot, teleporting into its spot while the mascot teleports to the characters. Both parties must be able to fit in their new location, or the attempt is wasted. This can be used once per long rest, and you can spend a 2nd level slot or higher to use it again. Greavy dismisses his current familiar and uses the Investiture of the Chainmaster on the art elemental he summons. The stat block for the art elemental is on page 185 of the Strixhaven's Curriculum of Chaos book. They have an armor class of 11, a 4d6 plus 4 hit points, and a move speed of 30 feet. Greavy gives it a flying speed of 40 feet due to the Investiture of the Chainmaster. It resists cold, fire, and is immune to poison and the poison conditions. If it dies, it explodes in a burst of light, blinding each creature within 5 feet unless it makes a Constitution saving throw against Greavy's spell DC. The creature can save each turn to end the effect. The art elemental has a ranged cold attack called Melancholic Bolt that deals 2d4 plus 1 cold damage, and a melee attack called Joyful Flare dealing 2d4 plus 1 fire damage. Once per day, it can use Captivating Artistry, charming a creature within 30 feet for 1 minute if it does not make the Charisma save versus Greavy's spell DC. Greavy also learns another cantrip and another spell known. For the cantrip, we want Prestidigitation in order to add more flair to our performance, and for the spell known, we will take Scorching Ray. Our cantrips also improve at this level, so we now have 2 bolts with our Eldritch Blast, and our Firebolt and Ray of Frost spells deal an extra dice of damage. One important thing to know is that the spell Hex adds damage to each attack we make, so it adds a d6 to both bolts of our Eldritch Blast, and each ray from our Scorching Ray adding a lot of extra damage. Remember, we also add our Charisma modifier to our Eldritch Blast damage, And as an Ifrit Warlock, we can add our proficiency bonus in fire damage to one of our attacks.
As his studies progress, Greavy feels a stirring in that part of himself the Ifrit referred to as his spark, as if it were growing stronger. So far he's been using the power his patron has granted to him, but now he begins to draw more upon his own energies. He has known for some time that the power he gets from his patron runs out more quickly than his own, but is also easier to replenish. Greavy focuses his studies on improving his own power. He learns to create darts of force that unerringly strike their target. He learns to make these darts appear to be shards of ice. As he and his friends have found themselves involved in a mystery of sorts and find themselves in many dangerous situations, this new power sees a great deal of use.
Yeah. At 6th level, Greavy takes 2nd level of Sorcerer, and he gains Font of Magic, which are sorcery points that he can spend and gain extra sorcerer spell slots. He has 2 points now and gains another point at each sorcerer level. He also gains another spell slot, having 3 now. He also learns another 1st level spell known and takes Magic Missile, which creates 3 darts of magical force that hit any creatures you choose within range, dealing 1d4 plus 1 force damage, and when cast at a higher level slot, creates 1 additional dart for each additional spell after the first. The darts can target a single creature or be divided between multiple foes, and Hex will add a d6 damage to each dart. At 7th level, Greavy takes 3rd level of Sorcerer. He gains another 1st level spell slot, 2 2nd level spell slots, and can learn a new spell known. He takes Rhyme's Binding Ice that creates a cone of frost that damages and immobilizes creatures. He also learns Metamagic, which allows him to alter the nature of his spells. He can choose 2 options from the list available of Metamagics, and he takes Twin Spell, which lets him spend 1 sorcery point per level of the spell, 1 for cantrips, to make a copy of that spell. This spell must only be capable of targeting a single creature, so Magic Missile, Eldritch Blast, and Scorching Ray don't work, but Firebolt, Phantasmal Force, and Chaos Bolt do. He also takes Quicken Spell, letting him cast the spell as a bonus action by spending 2 sorcery points. Now, this doesn't allow you to cast 2 leveled spells in the same turn, but he can cast Scorching Ray and follow it up with an Eldritch Blast or Firebolt, or cast Green Flame Blade twice, allowing 1 dagger attack and another as a bonus action. He could also forgo with his attack to command Guinevere to attack and still cast the spell using his bonus action.
With his power increasing, Greavy becomes even more well-liked on campus, with many admirers wanting to be his friend, including a Dampier maiden from Silverquill College who seems quite smitten with him. He spends a lot of time with her and learns that she is a warlock as well, but her patron is a ghost from a part of the Shadowfell she calls Urborg. She tells Greavy all about shadow magic and the power it can bring. Greavy is fascinated with the idea of painting with shadow and begins studying with her. His new friend Consuela also has a mascot familiar, and it's an Inkling, which is the mascot of Silverquill College. It is sculpted from shadow magic in the same way Guinevere is sculpted from elemental magic. Its name is Vlad, and Greavy can't help but notice how beautiful Vlad and Guinevere look as they fly around together.
Yeah. There are rules in the Strixhaven book for making relationships with fellow students. You can have friends, rivals, or even a love interest. The rules for this begin on page 47 of the Strixhaven's book, but to sum it up, you earn relationship points through role-play encounters with NPCs, and the more points you get, the closer the relationship is, or the more bitter the rivalry is if you have a rival. If the relationship has 2 positive points, you can attempt to become beloved with the person. This can be either a romantic, but it could also be just a very deep relationship. And if you have a beloved, you gain inspiration from them, which works exactly like having 1 bardic inspiration dice that you can use each day and can keep it until it is used or by taking a long rest. A character can have a number of beloveds equal to your proficiency modifier and gains an inspiration dice from each of them. At 8th level, Greavy takes 4th level of Sorcerer, gaining an ability booster feat, and he takes the Shadow Touched feat. The magic he learns from Consuela touches his spark, adding black magic to it. He gains a +1 to Charisma and can cast Invisibility once per day without using a spell slot, and can also cast it with a spell slot if he chooses. He also learns a 1st level Illusion or Necromancy spell that he can also cast once per day without expending a spell slot, and can cast it with his spell slots as well. And he learns Silent Image, allowing him to create larger and more interactive scenes for his performances. He also learns another cantrip, another spell loan, and gains another 2nd level spell slot. For the cantrip, Greavy takes Mold Earth, allowing him another element he can sculpt with, and for his spell known, he takes Mirror Image for a great protective spell that doesn't require concentration.
As Greavy's skill and power increases, his patron becomes more involved with him, communicating regularly, and even attending some performances, sharing a box with his cousin, the Dean of Expression, who, despite being a very powerful Ifrit in his own right, seems a bit in awe of your patron. You have heard rumors that your patron is in fact friends with Galazeth Prismari, the elder dragon who founded Prismari College. Celebrating with you after a performance in which you held an important role, your patron spoke with you privately and said he may be away for some time. His old enemy, the wizard who you believed had been destroyed, has restored himself to life and is causing trouble for your patron on a plane called Mirrodin. Greavy offers to aid his master in the struggle, but Ibn al-Sud tells him to wait there, that even planeswalkers wouldn't bother someone at the school, and that if he needs Greavy's help, he will summon him. As a parting gift, he blesses Greavy with his magic, adding more power to Greavy's spark, laughing that one day Greavy will be so strong that he might have to call Greavy Master.
Yeah. At 9th level, Greavy takes 5th level of Warlock. He learns another spell known, and his Warlock spell slots become 3rd level. His background adds Haste and Water Walk to both his spell list, and his patron adds Create Food and Water and Fireball to the Warlock spell list for him. Greavy takes Fireball, feeling it is a true expression of power, both beautiful and deadly. It will be useful should his master summon him to battle. He also learns another invocation, and he learns Armor of Shadows, which allows him to cast mage armor on himself at will without expending a spell slot. Greavy has never been comfortable wearing armor, and this protection is much more to his liking. At 10th level, Greavy takes 6th level of Warlock. The power that Ibn al-Sud added to Greavy's spark gave him some power of the Ifrit. He gains resistance to fire damage, and as a bonus action, can give himself a fly speed of 30 feet for 10 minutes, and can do this a number of times per day equal to his proficiency modifier. He also learns another spell known, and he is taking Hypnotic Pattern, allowing him to create art so beautiful it charms, immobilizes, and incapacitates an audience.
Greavy and his friends solve the mystery that has been plaguing the school. He also finishes his studies and graduates the Prismari College with honors. He is now free to continue his journey. Join us next week when we continue the story of Greavy the artist. Please let us know what you think of the story so far, as well as any comments, questions, or build ideas in the comments below, especially if you have a character that you think would be great for one of the remaining colleges. And until next time, cheers!
Cheers.